Welcome to Revenza Tales, where we provide uncut stories of betrayal and redemption that'll capture your heart and spark your soul. If you're motivated by stories of strength in the face of heartbreak, tap that subscribe button, enable notifications, and leave a like to be a part of our fierce community. Leave a comment below on the city you're viewing from. Let's see how far this story goes. Imagine a funeral at which a 40-year marriage by a widow is negated in one speech, but her secret strength turns the tables. This is the tale of Eleanor, 68, who was blindsided by her son and husband's mistress, yet regained her power in a way that left them shaking. Prepare to take a ride from sorrow to victory. By her husband's grave, Eleanor remained unseen as her son, Nathan, took the microphone, his voice shaking with emotion. He addressed another woman as the true family, while Eleanor, the actual wife and mother, became invisible. Everyone's eyes were on the woman in the front row, composed, tearful in a fitted dress, while Eleanor sat around the corner unseen. When the attorney subsequently announced her husband, William, had left everything to this woman, not a penny for Eleanor, the stranger hugged Nathan, her smile victorious. But Eleanor produced a second will, and all smiles evaporated. Her life started fresh at a funeral. William perished in a tragic car accident on a Boston rainstorm morning. The brakes failed on a curve, and his car crashed into a storefront. He was gone instantly, the doctors said, sparing him pain. A mercy Eleanor wasn't sure he deserved. Their 40-year marriage wasn't a fairy tale, but she thought it was sturdy, like an old house weathered but standing. She'd given up her career as a financial analyst to manage their home, believing William's promise, "I'll take care of you." She mistook it for love. At the service in a cold Somerville chapel, Eleanor donned William's beloved navy coat, greeting visitors though the biting wind froze her fingers. She smiled, making his send-off respectable, maintaining the neat image he fixated upon. Nathan, their 33-year-old son who works as a software engineer, stood at the podium in a sharp suit, his expression somber. Following a moving eulogy to his father, he stopped, tears welling up. "There's one person I need to thank," he said, his voice trembling. The room fell silent. Eleanor clenched her purse, knuckles white, anticipating her name, acknowledgement of 40 years of dedication, hospital vigils, unassuming sacrifices. She prepared for the validation she'd waited 40 years to receive. Nathan's words sliced like a jagged knife. "Someone who stood by Dad during his darkest hours, Ms. Cassandra Reed." A rustle spread through the aisle. In the front row, a woman stood, wiping away tears, smiling graciously. Her green dress fitted her body, her makeup perfect, her hair styled to perfection. Everyone's eyes were on Cassandra Reed, William's one-time assistant, now one of his consulting partners at his firm. Eleanor's world spun, a silent explosion echoing in her ears. She'd known Cassandra. William had dismissed her questions about her. "She's just efficient," he'd told her. "Don't be paranoid." At a company gala years ago, Cassandra had handed Eleanor a glass of wine, her smile warm but calculated. Eleanor had dismissed her as a sycophant. Now the irony stung. A whisper nearby hissed, "She's sitting like she's family." Then Nathan's quiet words to Cassandra, meant only for her, reached Eleanor. "You're the true family." Her teacup nearly slipped from her hand. This funeral wasn't just for William. It was for a secret life she'd never known, where she was a stranger. Guests shook her hand, murmuring condolences. "He was a good man. We'll miss him," and Eleanor nodded mechanically, a facade of composure. That night, in their quiet Somerville home, she sat in the dark living room. Removing her coat, she noticed its frayed hem, as if her marriage's dignity had unraveled. William's chair at the dinner table sat vacant, armrest chilly. His bitter stout of choice still lined the fridge. She never cared for it, but he purchased it every week. Habit, she understood, was a merciless prison. She lay awake, rather turning pages in worn photo books. Eleanor's smile was so natural then. William's eyes also sparkled when young. She found her old employee ID from her days as a financial analyst at his firm. Confident, always second from the right at board meetings. Then William had said, "Quit. I'll handle everything." She trusted him foolishly. Closing the album, she poured a glass of water, the kitchen clocks ticking deafening. Her pride, her patience, her marriage, all buried with William. But a deeper betrayal awaited. The following morning, in the lawyer's office, the air was scented with ink and polished wood. A worn-out print of the Constitution hung crookedly, sunlight slicing the floor into slivers. Mr. Larson, a lawyer in his 50s with a measured tone, read William's will, dated 3 years before. The bulk of property, the Somerville home, the Nantucket cottage, and all personal accounts, will pass to Ms. Cassandra Reed. Eleanor was pushed off her stage of life, abandoned in a weak spotlight, wondering what she did there. She looked at Nathan, stiff, his hands folded, his face unstartled, as though he'd known. Following the reading, she went to him. "You knew, didn't you?" she breathed, her voice trembling. "Dad had his reasons," Nathan replied, his voice unhesitantly calm. "His reasons?" Eleanor gagged. What did 40 years mean to him? Nathan hesitated and then told her, he worked hard his entire life. Cassandra got him. You didn't. The words removed her from their family's history. She'd lost her husband, and now her son. At home, she leaned against the driveway, her purse heavy, her arm numb. Inside William's closet, his dress shirts and ties carried the scent of his cologne, but what lies concealed in their folds? When had she ceased being family? Was it the anniversary she forgot he preferred his wine? Or when she quit working to be a housewife? Rummaging his drawers, she stumbled on a folder of letters, one of which was from the Nantucket property manager, to Cassandra 6 years ago. Eleanor adored that beach cottage, not realizing she was a guest. She went to Evelyn, her next-door neighbor, a sassy-witted widow in her late 70s with a humming rose garden. Saying Cassandra's name, Evelyn's face hardened. Cassandra? The one William took to those symphony things. You didn't attend? Eleanor smiled stiffly, her mouth parched. I wasn't fond of social gatherings. Evelyn moved her spoon in her tea. I thought they were dating. She was over frequently, even assisted him with Christmas lights one holiday season. Eleanor stiffened. She'd spent that Christmas confined to bed with a sprained ankle, been told a neighbor boy assisted. When did they become close? She asked. Evelyn pondered. 10, possibly 15 years ago. I saw her when you were looking after your sister. I assumed she was a relative. 15 years. A deception spun through half of her marriage. Eleanor sat in Evelyn's sunroom, a trespasser in a stranger's existence. 4 years, she'd carefully allocated their retirement fund, selected William's bathrobes, made his doctor's appointments, and spent her parents' last savings to bail out his firm in a cash crisis. But he'd accumulated a fortune for another, out of her reach. At home, downstairs, she discovered a dusty box of photographs in the basement. In one, William was standing with Cassandra at a corporate gala, his hand lightly resting on her arm, his smile radiating brighter than Eleanor had ever witnessed. He appeared younger, unfettered, happier, his opposite the reserved man sitting next to her. Another photo was of Nathan, almost 19, standing with them, his smile uncertain but willing. A corner of the photo had been blacked out. Rubbing it with an eraser showed a written note, "Our little family will be official one day." Something cracked open in Eleanor, not her heart, but trust, shattered beyond mending. That evening, she lit only one candle in the kitchen, the first time in the absence of William. She listened to a soft jazz record, its slow beat infilling the emptiness. 4 years, she'd adapted to William's pace, never her own. No more. From now on, the music, the rhythm, the steps, they were hers to decide. She'd thought the worst was finished. The will, Cassandra's audacious assumption of family, the Nantucket cottage bequeathed to her. But Nathan's betrayal was deeper. Her one child, the one she felt would always be hers, regardless of the shifting world. They sat at a warm Somerville cafe, where Nathan had once enjoyed caramel sundaes as a child. He came wearing a trench coat, stiff as a board meeting attendee, not visiting his mom. He placed his phone face down, a warning any call could terminate their conversation. Why did you serve Cassandra a notice in law? He demanded curtly, eyes icy. Eleanor crossed his gaze. Don't you think I should have? He shrugged. She didn't hurt you. Your dad decided to give her the money. Suing her just makes everybody awkward. Awkward? Eleanor's voice broke. Your father deceived me for decades. I sacrificed my profession for this family. Sold your tuition off your mother's emerald ring. Do you understand what that ring represents? Nathan scowled, exhaling vehemently. You always bring it up like it's something you deserved. The words fell like a lead weight, not anger but icy distance. Dad told me, Nathan said, his tone low, his best years were with Cassandra. She knew him, she respected him, she didn't question or criticize him like you did. I questioned him because he ceased to respect me. I criticized him when he was in the wrong. Nathan shook his head, as if she didn't matter. You're too old-fashioned, Mom. Sacrifice is admirable, but Dad didn't want love like that. Realization struck. This hadn't come on overnight. Nathan had believed this for years, quietly agreeing with his father. She glanced at the boy he was, the asthmatic kid she calmed through nights of wakefulness, the bullied adolescent she stood up for, the broken 17-year-old she hugged under constellations. She got out a worn photograph from her purse. That summer when you were 2, we went to the beach, she said, pushing it across the table. Your father skipped out for work, so there were just the 2 of us. You're wearing red swim trunks, making wobbly footprints in the sand, holding onto my neck, screaming Mommy, when the waves rushed in. You knew safety then. Nathan looked at the photo, wordless, unmoved. I know you worship your father, Eleanor went on. He was sophisticated, serene, always said the right thing. But did you ever think I laid the groundwork for that man to be? Nathan's eyes flickered with uncertainty. Dad did what pleased him, he said. Cassandra needed him. You were too powerful. Too powerful, Eleanor repeated, the words a sour epiphany. She remembered nights working their budget, cooking through fever, swallowing tears in William's cold silences, smiling always. That was her strength. She put the photo away and stood. You're right. I was too strong. And now, I'll use that strength for myself. Whatever Nathan then said, she did not hear. She stepped out into rain, drops drumming the parking lot. In her car, she grasped the steering wheel, hesitated, did not cry, did not break, only understood. She'd lost her husband, her marriage, her son. But she'd gained something. Clarity about her identity and whose it was not. It was time to live for herself. Originally, she'd assumed Cassandra was a late-in-life affair, a sly opportunist taking advantage of William's vulnerabilities. Now, the reality was apparent to her. Cassandra had manipulated everything. On a drizzly afternoon, Eleanor sat at her kitchen table, a cold coffee mug in front of her, scrolling Cassandra's public Facebook page. Her picture portrayed her on a beach, smiling gently, the background softly blurred to conceal what was behind. Her bio said, architecture consultant, symphony lover and servant, thankful for the gentle company of life. Eleanor discovered William in her albums, sitting in a wicker chair, grasping lemon pie made by Cassandra, captioned, his smile is my favorite reward. The time was 6 years ago, when Eleanor was confined to bed with arthritis, and William said work kept him away. He wasn't running from her. He was forging another life. A few more photographs. William in Cassandra's living room, proudly wearing the jacket Eleanor had given him, assisting her in planting roses, playing with bonsai. A video caught William raising a glass to Cassandra with a Christmas carol playing, Nathan sitting between them, still in college, his hair longer, his smile shy. Cassandra's arm was draped over him as she laughed. Your dad would be proud of you. Eleanor stopped, her hand hovering over the touchpad. Cassandra had been William's secret. She'd inserted herself as family, pushing Eleanor aside for years. She called Ruth, an old colleague of William's from his company, now half-retired, taking care of her grandchild and working freelance financial cases. Ruth picked up warmly. Eleanor, I heard about William. I was going to call. Thank you, Eleanor said, getting to the point. Ruth, I need your assistance to discover something. Ruth's voice hardened. Tell me what you suspect. Eleanor's tone was steady but firm. I think William diverted company money to Cassandra for at least a decade, purchasing properties and making unaccounted transfers. Ruth hesitated. You're not mending a marriage, Eleanor. You're bringing fraud to light. I want the truth, Eleanor said, her determination hardening. Eleanor had been living in the dark for too long. She and Ruth made a date to meet at Ruth's house in 2 days. Meanwhile, Eleanor went possessed. In the Somerville library, she drilled into Cassandra's property records. One family villa in her name, bought 5 years ago, had coincided with William's employee housing project. Eleanor had once visited that project, teasing, next time take me too. William had dodged. You wouldn't like it. Now she knew the villa wasn't for clients. It was for Cassandra. 2 days later, Eleanor arrived at Ruth's peaceful Newton bungalow, its wilted chrysanthemums along the front. Ruth welcomed her with lemon tea and opened the laptop. I reviewed payment records from archives, Ruth told her, scrolling to 3 marked, outside consulting support. The beneficiary company, Kint LLC, is a shell, no physical office. She zoomed in on a $50,000 transfer, while Eleanor was recovering from knee surgery. Eleanor's stomach twisted. Ruth's eyes softened behind her glasses. Do you really want to do this? Most would drop it. Eleanor didn't reply, merely saved the file to her flash drive. Driving home, she took the long way, the sun blinding off the windshield, the air cool with autumn. A 60s ballad played on the radio. You only find the truth when you stop pretending. The words resonated. Clarity came when denial ended. At home, she stored Cassandra's Facebook pictures in a folder called Evidence. She was no longer the woman who hid hurt behind a kitchen counter. She was Eleanor Hayes, William's lawful wife, Nathan's mother, cancelled from her own tale, and prepared to reauthor the conclusion. A second set of papers came in the mail from Ruth as Eleanor cleaned the kitchen sink. Sunlight striped the countertop via the blinds, reminding her of how she'd kept her marriage so well-groomed, quiet, until it wasn't hers anymore. Ruth's email subject, Suspicious Transactions, Preliminary Assessment, showed 3 payments to Kint LLC, amounting to $375,000, spaced out over 5 years in order to avoid audits. Ruth's annotation stated, "No invoices justify this amount. This is possibly fraudulent." The evidence closed Eleanor's mind. She called Michelle Robinson, a fraud and corporate law specialist in her mid-50s, her voice warm but direct. "I believe my late husband funneled company funds to his mistress for over a decade," Eleanor said, her tone unwavering. "Send me everything. Documents, emails, photos," Michelle replied. Eleanor compiled over 60 files, bank records, photos, Ruth's findings, printed them, and delivered them to Michelle's Boston office, a sleek glass skyscraper. Waiting, Eleanor gazed at the skyline, feeling the weight of her mission. Michelle entered, her sharp bob and tailored suit exuding confidence, and flipped through the folder. "We'll review this," she said. "I want Cassandra to repay every cent," Eleanor said, meeting her eyes. Michelle adjusted her glasses. "We'll do our best." The next months were a blur of meetings, emails, and legal battles. Eleanor filed a lawsuit against Cassandra, shaking William's firm, his estate, and Nathan. Nathan took Cassandra's side, calling Eleanor. "You're ruining Dad's memory," he said, voice sharp. "Your father's memory is a lie," Eleanor replied. "He was a fraud who betrayed his wife and son's mother. That's the truth." He hung up, and the silence that followed ached, but Eleanor pressed on. In court, Cassandra's attorney argued the money were legitimate payments for consulting services, generating forged invoices. But Ruth's testimony and Cassandra's Facebook pictures, William in her house, toasting her, spoke a different language. Eleanor testifies, her voice firm. "I gave 40 years to my marriage. I sacrificed my career, my mother's emerald ring for Nathan's tuition, my dignity for William's image. Finding out he created another life with my sacrifices shattered me." The judge, a black woman in her 60s, looked at Eleanor with comprehension, as if she understood the unseen wars women like her waged. Then the second will, located in William's safe, executed a year prior to his passing. Differing from the one giving all to Cassandra, this one, witnessed and notarized, left the Somerville home, Nantucket cottage, and $4.8 million in funds to Eleanor as the main beneficiary. It contradicted the subsequent will, implying fraud or coercion. The judge ordered Cassandra to pay back $1.2 million, plus interest, for the fraudulent payments. Cassandra sold the villa and Nantucket home, losing her reputation and job. She disappeared from Eleanor's life. Nathan wouldn't speak to her for years. But at his grandfather's funeral he called. They reunited, hugged, and slowly restored their relationship. "Often I was standing up for a fantasy," Nathan confessed, his eyes welling up with tears. "I'm sorry, Mom. I see you now." Eleanor embraced him. "I always thought in you," she said. He smiled. "How did you learn to fight so well?" "I always knew how," she said with a chuckle. "You just weren't paying attention." Onlookers at the funeral laughed, charmed by their makeup. Later, Eleanor strolled to her garden, stopping beside a crabapple tree she planted 20 years earlier. Last year, it almost died, she said to a friend. I almost cut it down, but this spring, it bloomed brighter than ever. The friend nodded. Some things refuse to give up. That night, Eleanor folded the reception chairs, the porch wind chimes softly tinkling. The sunset glowed over the maple tree, as though to ask, "Who are you?" She removed her shoes, went barefoot into the house, hung up her dress, and climbed into bed. She knew herself, a survivor, a warrior, set free by the truth. Thanks for being with Revenza Tales on Eleanor's path from betrayal to triumph. Your support keeps these tales of strength alive. This story is a work of fiction, based on real feelings, names and locations altered to secure anonymity. We tell it to initiate thought. How many women endure in secret, cut out of their own narratives? If you were Eleanor, would you remain quiet or battle for your truth? Leave a comment below with your opinion and the city you are viewing from. Let's see how far around the world this story goes. Give that like button a click, share with others, and subscribe with notifications for further stories of victory. See you in the next video. Remain fierce, remain subscribed.